In over 3 decades, I've learned that truly great car dealerships are only great because of one thing: leadership. So I'm sitting down with the great men and women inspiring automotive on Tim Talks, automotive leadership and beyond. Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode. Boy, this one's going to be good. Another episode of Tim Talks, leadership and beyond. A lot of you just saw our last episode with David Long. And as I was having conversation with David, he said, listen, Tim, there is one person that has just made a huge impact in my life, and you have to get him on the show. And I said, really? And that person so graciously, with their crazy schedule, agreed to a few minutes on with us this morning. One of the leading executive coaches, leadership coaches, guys in the world. It doesn't just, we're going to talk about that, actually teaches an executive training course in Paris. Yes, not, I'm from Kentucky, not Paris, Kentucky, not Paris, Kentucky. I love Paris, Kentucky. The most beautiful horse farms in the world are in Paris, Kentucky, but Paris, France, where they talk a little different. Chris Hunsicker is with us today, and I am so honored and blessed to have you, my friend, on. That you would just take a few minutes out of your busy schedule and now, sipping cappuccinos and tea in Paris, France, to be with us. So welcome to Tim Talks, brother.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be here, and it's good to have you. And I'm glad that David even made that suggestion, because I've been David's leadership coach for almost 20 years now. We met a long time ago back in Florida when he was running Coastal Cadillac, and just an amazing guy and amazing business. I never cease to be amazed at the Venn diagrams of people and how we all intersect with each other.
It's amazing. And you said something that I just want to, which is the genesis of this show and why we put the time. Everybody's flying all over the country and we put the time in the show. But you said something, a lot of people in this space that listen to podcasts that are in a SOTU or any, quite frankly, any major event, listens to David. And I would argue, with his success, maybe or maybe you don't know, David needs a coach. And ladies and gentlemen, my era, we're not going to have the LeBron and Michael, because there is no comparison. MJ's the GOAT, but Michael Jordan had a coach. So I think that unpacking that, understanding and being humble enough to understand that we haven't got it all figured out and that we need a coach. Chris, I want to get into your story, but that just made me think of a question. Why do you think that's so hard sometimes for people to understand that they really need help? Or maybe you don't see that.
No, I see that all the time. And I would suggest this is it. There are leadership myths or blind spots that I've come over 30 years of coaching people that are common. And one common blind spot is this idea that resilience is equated with toughness. So in other words, to be resilient is tough. You just grind harder, press harder, work harder, show up, don't admit weakness, don't show. Whereas great people, and I even did a whole thing on the DNA of an A player. One of the things of every A player you notice is they want to be coached, and generally they want to be coached hard. Resilience isn't about being tough. Resilience is about being able to deal with reality as it is, and then take the pain of the truth and convert it or alchemize it into fuel for performance. And that's what a coach does. A coach is able to sit down and say, hey, here's what you do when you're at your best. Now, how do we help you do it more often and in different categories? And that's what coaching does. It isn't so much, I'm going to correct mistakes in your life, as I'm going to take what you do well and show you how to do it more often in more areas. That's what great coaching does.
Wow. I mean, ladies and gentlemen listening, some of you probably just turned up the volume. I was writing copious notes, and then I'm like, wait a minute, we're recording this, so I can listen to it again and I can take some notes. So wow. I mean, what a way to start out. Very encouraging. Let's go back a little bit and tell us your story. I think a lot of people see, even myself in my own career, a lot of people see on stage talking and hopefully making people laugh and pouring into people, but what it took to get there. So tell us your story. Obviously you've been coaching 30 years, but not like I was born in a cornfield in Iowa, but like before that, like your professor, what led you to here?
Two things. I began as a therapist, a marriage family therapist. I work with adolescent drug addicts, which, by the way, is great training for automotive retail because adolescent drug addicts are just dealer principals when they're young. And but for 5 years, I ran an adolescent drug rehab program, and it was exciting until my program got bought by a large hospital and they closed it, and I suddenly found myself without a job. And one of the vice presidents at Mrs. Fields Cookies, her son was my client. And when she found out they closed the program, she approached me and said, is there any way you could do for my business what you did for my family? Because my business is more screwed up than my family. My first response was, well, not really, because I'm a therapist, not a coach. She said, I'll pay you. I'm like, I'll do it. Now, I didn't understand that in a lot of the coaching consulting world, you basically meet with the CEO, lie to them, tell them how great they are, and then they keep paying you.
Right.
I came from a therapy world where you look at the reality, you confront people about what's going on, and you make a plan to go forward. So I meet with the CEO of Mrs. Fields Cookies, and we're talking, and he spends 45 minutes telling me how great his business is. And finally, I got all done. I said, sir, I don't mean to be rude, but why the hell are you going to pay me $1,000 a day to come in and work with your company when everything's perfect? And he says, well, people don't usually talk to me that way. I said, I know, you're a good news to the top kind of organization. You have no idea what's happening in your company because everybody's so afraid you're going to yell at them that they lie to you. And he started screaming at me, literally like F-bombs and everything. And I said, wow, so you have problems with emotional self-regulation too. And then he really went off. I thought he was going to physically harm me. And when he got all done, I said, wow, you probably have problems with your wife and kids at home too. Doesn't this show up there? And then he went off again. And finally, he ran out of steam. And I said, are you done with your temper tantrum? And he goes, I can't believe you're talking to me that way. I said, I can't believe no one else has. And for whatever moment, he just had this clarity. He goes, I need you, don't I? I said, only if you want to stay in business. And I walked out of that and he hired me. I walked out of that interview and I said, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I had this epiphany. I'm way better at helping good people become great than sick people become healthy. And that's when I made the pivot into coaching, which led to automotive retail, where again, I get called. Do you remember when Saturn launched, Saturn, the car company? So this is about 1994. Yeah. And I had been doing some work, and they ran the Chevy Focus Academy. Well, they found out about me and they said, hey, send us your stuff. So I sent them some videotapes and some training, some manuals are written, and they flew me back to Spring Hill and invited me to come work for them. I did a 9 o'clock interview. They hired me by noon. And by 1 o'clock, I was going out to work with the dealership, having never been in the car business. I did about 4 weeks of their training program that they did with some Pontiac dealers. And I'm in Rhode Island and I'm starting to find my legs, and I have what I think is a great day. Afterwards, this old car dog comes up to me and goes, hey, Chris, you might be the best trainer I've ever been. You are absolutely amazing, and you are an ass. I'm like, what? He says, tell you what, you buy me dinner, I'll help you out. He's a car guy, right? I'm like, okay. So we go down, I buy him dinner, and he goes, you're great, but here's your problem. You think you're better than us. I said, I could hear it all day. You don't like car people. And I didn't. I was the guy that went to buy a car and said no, and they threw my keys out in the lot. Like, they really did that. That actually happened to me. And he said, let me tell you about changing pay plans. Let me talk to you about PACs. And he spent 3 hours and invited me into the world. And Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island is where I became a car guy. And so I decided, okay, there's something here. And I had to go from Rhode Island to Boston. So instead of flying home, the next week I was training in Boston, I called up a couple of the people that were in my class and I said, can I come to your dealership? And I went in and I wrote service all Saturday morning just so I could see what that was like. I spent Sunday on the sales floor. I even took a couple of ups just for fun. And I started to understand, oh my gosh, he was right. And that weekend, I fell in love with the car business. And I've worked pretty much with automotive retail for the last 30 years. I do a lot in healthcare. I do a lot with governments, but my mainstay is automotive retail.
Wow. That is an incredible story, and thank you for that. What is in your travels? Okay, is there a common denominator? I love the statement. I'm better at making good people become great than sick people becoming healthy. And I think that's a mindset. I think that, and maybe that's the answer to I just answered my own question, but I want to hear it from you. What is there a common denominator in a lot of dealerships, in a lot of, I know you obviously coach other businesses, but is there a common denominator that is hindering leadership to break? I have my ideas, to break through to truly from, becoming good to great. Is there, something as a recurring theme that you see when you take on a project, you take on a dealer group? Is there something that happens over, and maybe there's not, but just want to hear that from you.
Yeah, yes, there are. And there are probably several of them, but let's focus in on a couple I think could be really useful for your audience in this. Number one is brokenness. There's this almost inability or lack of desire to admit, I'm struggling. This is hard. I'm having a difficulty with this. And it comes back to, think about every great GM, at some point he was in over his head, she was in over her head. And instead of solving the problems, I just got to sell more cars. If I just sell more cars, get more gross, everything will take care of itself. And it doesn't. Selling cars does not overcome being a bad business person. Selling enough cars doesn't overcome the fact that you have a crappy culture. Because what happens is you grind, rise, burn, and crash. And you do that over and over and over and over again. And so the first thing is, people, and I tell this to every client I work with, you are not broken. Your inner child doesn't need to be healed. You don't need to go to therapy. What you need is to stop and look and say, this isn't working. How do I get better at it? In other words, what's the specific skill gap that you need to bridge to get better? And everybody, if you want to move from this level of performance to this level of performance, it is 100% a leadership issue. People will all the time say, I do this, right? I'm a family therapist, and I tell my wife all the time, if she wasn't so crazy, we could have a better marriage. And I'm a family therapist, and I tell my kids, if you guys didn't suck so much, I could be a good dad. And as a leader, if I just had better people, I could be a good leader. And that's the problem. Can you hear that? That if everybody else sucked less, I could be better. And that's why people don't level up. It's coming in to say, I don't need better people. I need to become better at influence. I don't need a better wife. I need to become better at patient and loving. I don't need better kids. I need to become more flexible and diverse in how I connect with and motivate them. And so the big number one pattern is you're looking for the answer outside. And that's why so many dealers fall prey to vendors. I've got this great app. I've got this great program. And they pray. Like, that's what you do in selling, right? You identify a pain and you associate your problem with healing the pain. And so the pain is you're afraid you don't know how to get better. You know that you need better people in order to do that. So I get to come in and sell you my app, my process, my training, my thing. And nothing ever gets better. You just get temporary relief from the pain that the one that needs to change is you. And you're the only one that doesn't know it.
That is so good. Similar, you said it better than I've ever said it, quite frankly. But sometimes in my travels, I tell people, the great philosopher of our time, Michael Jackson, once said that you need to start with the man or the woman in the mirror. And I think that it is amazing what happens. And I know that obviously you're new to Tim Talks, but I think that, there is a common thread. It was the genesis, the reason that we wanted this podcast, because we have the privilege of partnering with thousands and thousands of dealers through our company and Carnell. And I see it, and I wanted to give back. Like Maxwell said, I want to make a difference with people that want to make a difference, doing something that makes a difference, and understanding that there is a common denominator in the stores that are completely wrecked. There's a store down the street. It was believe it or not, a Lexus store, and it was broken. The customer service was so bad before Kevin Doyce showed up. Like people didn't, at golf, playing golf at church, I remember hearing stories, don't take your car there, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it took that one person, the store got sold, that one person to come in and be that person of change, to be that person that is humble enough to understand. And funny, I'm gonna go on a tangent on Kevin, but he brought in his managers, and obviously they let some go, and then new people came in and said, everybody give me your business card. Nobody has any more titles anymore. We're just going to take care. And he put his cell phone on an email distribution to everybody in their database. I know you've had problems, call me. Right now, that got a little issue. He said he had a few drunk dials at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, but it was a process to change the perception. But he worked on the way people thought about the dealership. Well, most importantly, him and everybody else that didn't know him. And then they started building that. Now he's got people driving, and you couldn't hire good salespeople. Now he's got people driving an hour and a half to be part of that. And I just don't. That's why it's so encouraging to hear somebody of your of your pedigree per se, to say the same things but say them better with the way you say them. That I just want to get people to understand that it's not about. And I would even argue, no matter what, whether it's my business or the dealership or automotive, I think the first lesson, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is understanding like we really didn't start growing until I figured out it's not about me. Like it's not about me. It's like everybody else. In fact, when you're a venture-backed, company like us, it doesn't matter if you're the founder, everybody's your boss. You know what I mean? Like everybody you work for, the board is your boss, the investors are your boss. Quite frankly, like everybody's your boss. And it very clearly comes, it's not about us. So let me pour into our team. Let me pour into as many people as I can and get them. Again, back to Maxwell, the law of attraction, something's going on here. And then the law of duplication, being humble enough. And I had to go through that.
Yes.
And nobody could demo like I demoed. I was a sales manager at dealerships. Nobody could. And letting go and letting people just do what they do, inspired by that, I think is huge. Speak on that a little bit. I mean, maybe you can work with it better than, I know you can, better than I do, about that thought.
Yeah, and let me put it in usable frames that your listeners can use to make a difference in their store starting this afternoon. And I'd begin with this. All truth comes from proving contraries. In other words, truth lies in the contrary. From a religious sense, that's the difference between justice and mercy. In colloquial, look before you leap, but he who hesitates is lost. Absence makes the heart grows fonder, out of sight, out of mind. The truth is always found in the contrary. And so what you're saying is, as you grew your business, you had to understand it's not about you. And it's all about you. I start with this phrase all the time. In the book that I wrote, Unstoppable Culture, chapter 1, verse 1, page 1 says, in order for things to get better, you need to get better. And to your point, you can't be focused on you. So what do you need to get better at? The skills necessary to serve the people you love. And if your employees and your customers aren't people you love, you should not be in business. You should work for the government. Just hands down. So you look and say, I love my customers. What skills do I need to develop as a leader to serve them better? I love my team. What skills do I need to develop as a leader to serve them better? So it's not about you. It's about serving them. And it is about you, because in order for things to get better, you need to get better. Now, if you take Mr. Deutsch you were talking about, I love this because everybody has someone like that in their life. Here's what he did that anyone can duplicate. Because you can't give everyone your cell phone number. There's not like a recipe that he did you can repeat, but there's principles he used that you can use yourself. And this is it. Every day when you go into your dealership, you are either breaking or being broken. In other words, I, as an employee, am going to break you of your commitment to excellence so you accept my mediocrity. Or you, as a leader, are going to break me of my laziness and my mediocrity and get me to commit to a higher standard. Just the way you break a horse, you unleash its power in every transaction, right? And you know this. As a salesperson, a customer walks in the store, there is always a close. A salesperson, I close you on buying a car, or you as a customer close me on an excuse, but there is always a close. And somebody closed better than the other person. Every single day in your dealership, when you walk in, what you choose to address or not to address, your ability to address it, or your inelegance or your elegance, either you are breaking the mediocrity of your team to follow your excellence, your uncompromising sense of excellence, or they are breaking you of your system, your values, and your approach until you will accept their mediocrity. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. Again, I was writing until I keep forgetting that I can listen to this again. It's just you're either breaking or being broken. I mean, I think it's life. It's life.
Yes.
Some of these, these business these business principles that you're sharing, and you're just dropping bombs one after the other. I keep getting punched in the face. I think it's just, at the end of the day, it's life. It's how we choose to live. All of these things in our, the same principles that you just shared are in your marriage, in your family, in your,
Yes.
like, it's just life. And I think that when I have a few acronyms that I've put to the Friday Night Lights that we've mentioned several in here. I love that. Love the movie, but I also love the series even more. But it's clear eyes, full hearts can't lose. And clear eyes, are we truly, if we've humbled ourselves, and I won't go into them all, but clear eyes is very simple. Are we truly casting a vision on where we want to be? But in order to do that and see clearly, we must review the game film. And that's the game film of our life. How did I shouldn't have said that to my employee, or I shouldn't have said that to my wife. I should, what? Here's the game film I'm looking at, just like they're doing today in so many campuses and so many, NFL rooms, they're looking at tape. I missed that tackle. I missed that. And when we have clear eyes and we're casting a vision and writing down goals, it is the day to day that makes the difference. You can't just, it's like going to the gym. You can't just go to the gym and spend 30 or 40 minutes and walk out and say, well, I didn't see any results. It is a commitment to day after day after day. And oh, by the way, just starting the gym, I can't eat that. I can't eat that anymore. I need to get rep. Like, it's a process. And I think the people that are serious, like you, like the David Longs of the world, that are investing in coaching, they're understanding that becoming better humans is the number one thing, back to our Michael Jackson philosopher analogy. And because you're a better human, therefore it makes you a better leader. Not that everything takes care of itself, but it's a process. You either want to do it or you don't. It literally is that simple. And when it gets tough, a lot of people say, you know what I mean? So let's start there as we start to land the plane. What is the biggest roadblock that you see? Maybe it's mental. Again, maybe it's, I think everything bad in life from people all stems, and it's a whole other podcast, from pride and insecurity. And I think they might be the same thing. But what do you see? Is there a common roadblock that you see from people getting at least their mindset, like the David Longs, like the others that you're like, I need coaching, man? Is there something that keeps them from that?
Yeah, I would say a couple of different things. I'll start with where you were talking about how these principles apply to family, marriage, and others. I was with Justin Hansel, who owns Hansel Automotive Group. And this is during our first few months of working together. We'd been working together. I was coaching him and his key leadership team for about 6 months, and finally said, Chris, I just need to ask you, every other consultant coach I've ever worked with is fighting to get out of here at 3 o'clock so they can make the 5 o'clock plane and get home. And you're here till 6 or 7 in the evening. You'll talk to my, technician that's going through a divorce. You're working with my service manager whose kid's struggling with drugs. Like, what? You're different. Like, what is it? And he said, will you tell me? I said, do you really want to know? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I believe that God put me on earth to heal families. And 90% of the people that work in a dealership are never going to go to a therapist. But if I can help a dad learn emotional self-regulation at the store, that's going to save his son at 15 when he's trying to go through the drugs route or the sports route. And that's why I do what I do, because you can't be one person at home and one person at work. If I can help you solve a skill set issue at work, you're going to carry it home. And if I can help you solve a skill set issue at home, you're going to carry it to work. And so understanding that process, I think, is critical. And if I could give your listeners a tool, a game tape tool that I use all the time with people, it's so simple, but it's offensively simple, but so effective. Take 5 minutes, 3 minutes at the end of your day and before you go home, or if you need to do it while you're sitting in the car, that's great. Pencil and a piece of paper. Don't care. Don't be eloquent. Answer 3 questions every day for 5 minutes and it will change your directory. Number 1, what went well today? Because you've got to repeat what works. Number 2, what needs work? Not what did you fail at? Not what's terrible, but what needs work? This needs attention. This needs work. And then number 3, what's one thing I'm going to take action on tomorrow to start working on it? See, most people massively overestimate what they can accomplish in a week and underestimate what they can accomplish in a year. And my biggest challenge to answer your question that leaders keep them from moving to the next level is they don't have a daily practice of getting better. What they have is monthly goals, monthly targets, monthly numbers, 0 to 0, and they tend to repeat the same mistakes month after month, year after year, decade after decade. There's areas they're good at and there's areas they're not, and they don't tend to change. That's why I love podcasts like this, and I'm a little bit of a podcast junkie. And so when I was looking at what do my clients need, the vast majority of my clients would lose momentum and steam between the 2 weeks between I coached them or the once a month stores that I visit when I was working with them. And so I created a daily tool. I call it a podcast. It's a daily 5-minute podcast we call the Dealership War Room. And all it is one skill, one tool, one framework once a day, that day that you can listen to in the morning with your coffee while you're driving to work, and boom. It resets your focus for that day. And that's the biggest challenge is we tend to try to solve our business problems the way people solve your marriage problems. So your marriage is kind of off, things are struggling or difficult. So you buy a $5,000 European vacation to Paris to fall in love again. When what you really need to do is look her in the eyes every single day and talk about your love, your care, and your affection. It's the daily little stuff. And you don't solve a business problem with a strategic meeting, once a year, with a quarterly review, with, financial review at the end of the month. You solve it by daily measurable progress on small and simple things that repeated over time compound excellence I'm the way that money compounds interest.
I'm just blown away. You said something. Number one, I'm going to use your name when I give, because this falls right in line to when I try to teach Clear Eyes, Full Hearts Can't Lose. What a way to break it down. I really believe exactly what you just said. And well, not just car people, but a lot of car people have, this thing called ADD, and we're 900 miles an hour, and we confuse being busy for being effective, right? And yes. When you talk to, and the funny thing, and full disclosure, and I'll say this publicly, I work with dealers that sell 1,000 cars a month, and I work with dealers that sell 30 cars a month. And the ones that sell, and I'm not being ugly, I'm just saying the ones that sell 30 a month are always so busy and they never have time for training. They never have time I'm just telling you. Yes. And the more efficient ones, they're wanting to learn more. They're wanting to get better. But it's there's the ones that sell 30 a month. But one thing that I have learned that also came from Maxwell, I've mentioned him many, many times in here. He was in a conference in 2006 that I went to, and it truly changed my life. And it was 3 words. And he put it this way. Look, he said, and I thought it was just like me talking, like I'm all over the place. And, he had at the time who I do know, Dick Peterson, which was his original partner at Enjoy when he was a pastor in San Diego. Right. And he said, look, yesterday's gone. I can learn from yesterday. I'm going to look at yesterday and see what I could do better. And I'm not promised tomorrow, but I have today. So those 3 words were just for today. So at least me, and hopefully if you've listened to us for any length of time, you've heard me say that hundreds of times. I can't get a look. I have today. I have everything, ladies and gentlemen, in front of me today. And usually, at least with Tim Cox, because I know with my struggle that I struggle, and sometimes you read your own press clippings and all the stuff that you deal with. My just for today is, number one, waking up with gratitude, being thankful for the little things to set my mind right, but understanding just for today, allow me to treat people as though they're more important than me. And that sets the tone. And what happens is those, to your point, and to the point of journey and leadership and growing as a human, that just for today turns into a week. And that if you're doing just for today, that week, then it turns into a month, and then it turns into a year. And then you look back at everything God has done in and through your life, and you're looking back at the blessings, and you're like, oh my, wow. I mean, it's amazing. And I want to get people to understand that literally it doesn't have to be charts and graphs and analytics. And yes, that's part of it. But it literally, what would happen if we just worked on us daily, that I have today, and today I'm going to be the best, fill in the blank. Today I'm going to do the best at boom. I'm not going to do this yesterday. It's amazing what happens. And I'm just encouraged to see somebody of your caliber talking about that. I do want to spend some time. What an incredible, we're going to have to really make sure this gets out to as many people as possible, because this has been an incredible conversation. Let's talk a little bit about the time that you spend in Paris and pouring into people. So I opened up the show and we talked about you are an executive coach at a university. I believe it's a university in Paris. Yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Serge Pantois.
Yeah, you say that better than I'm from Kentucky, so I probably couldn't pronounce that. So unpack that. And so people are coming all over the world, and you get them for a short period of time, but for all over the world, and you're pouring into it. Let's talk about that just for a little bit as we land the plane.
Yeah, and let me use that to tie it to the dealership work, because this is critical. So most of these people are professionals working in multinational companies. They're in their 40s and their 50s, and they're looking to be an internal or an external coach. And they go through an MBA program, a master's program in executive coaching. I'm their last guest lecturer before they graduate. So basically my workshop, and I ran a global coaching program for Ford Motor Company for about 5 years, where we had about 300 coaches and about 5,800 dealerships in 42 countries. It's a cool project. Absolutely love travel in the world. And I talk to these people. We do a case study. So the morning is a Harvard Business Review style case study of the Ford coaching program. And the afternoon is where I go through skills, tools, and frameworks on how to effectively coach. And you mentioned Maxwell, and I always use a quote from John Maxwell when I start the afternoon session. And I pulled it up so I could get it right. He says, "You will never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routines." And that's the whole thing when I'm teaching them about how to coach. You're not trying to get people to learn new theories and ideas. Most people listen to podcasts, go to training classes, get coaching, and all they do is become more educated blamers. They have better words, language, and frameworks to tell other people why they suck. What they don't do is often what you were talking about, the Michael Jordan effect. How do I get better? The Kobe Bryant thing. Where do I need to practice fundamentals more? And so you need to look and say, I want to get to this level in my life. I want this quality of relationship with my teenage son. I want this level of intimacy and connection with my wife. What daily habits do I need to establish? Because you cannot change anything in your life until you change what you do every day. Now, marry that with this idea, and this is what we spend the whole afternoon on. Once you have a protocol, this comes from Phil Stutz in his brilliant book on Lessons for Life, and Brian Johnson in his Heroic Community talks about this, that the less you feel like doing your protocol, the more you need to do it. Now that presupposes you have a protocol. And so the first thing, so when do you need to have a gratitude practice the most? When you don't feel like it. When do you need to pray the most? When you don't feel like it. When do you need to exercise? When you don't feel like it. That the absolute separator of great and good in every environment, in every situation, is your ability to get yourself to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it. And it all starts with, in order for things to get better, I need to get better. What daily habits do I need to add? If I add those daily habits, what's the protocol? Now, the rest of your life is learning how to run into discomfort, how to get yourself to do your protocol when you don't feel like doing it. The most important time to exercise a protocol is when you don't feel like it. And when you build that muscle, that the commitment of your character determines your action and not the mood of your feeling. Your life changes forever.
Wow. I mean, I am pretty fired up. I wish we could go another hour. I think we could go another hour. I'm assuming, Chris, that Unstoppable Culture is available anywhere.
Yes,
Amazon.
it is.
Is there an audiobook by chance?
It is. Well, yes and no. No, it's recorded and it's in the process of being distributed, but it won't be out for another 3 or 4 weeks.
Unbelievable. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard. Look, I've written 2 pages, two notebooks, and then I keep writing things down. I know I'm going to hear it again, but I mean, I'm just blown away. And I listen. Everyone needs a coach. There has been so many knowledge bombs dropped today. So we will put a link to Chris's book, Unstoppable Culture, in the description of this podcast. And I am just so, I think Tim Talks went up a level I'm just blown away. I'm humbled. Thank you. To quote another great philosopher of our time, and that would be Anchorman. And as he said, you're kind of a big deal. Not sure if your apartment smells of mahogany and old leather-bound books, but the fact that you would spend some time with us is extremely encouraging. And thank you for giving back, and thank you to pouring into the people that click on that button. This has been phenomenal. Chris, thank you, brother. I truly appreciate it. We're and quite frankly, me behind the scenes, I can't wait to get to know you better. I've got your cell phone, and I'm gonna text you, and I think you're gonna be able to coach me very, very, very soon, because I absolutely need it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to what an incredible session of Tim Talks. We are so grateful, so humbled that Chris Hunsicker has joined us today. Again, the link to his book, Unstoppable Culture, will be in the description. And if you need anything to contact Chris, if your dealership or your company wants to communicate or reach out to Chris, we will put that in the comments as well. Ladies and gentlemen, as we always say, we're just going to do our part, like Chris was saying, every day to make ourselves better and hopefully pour into you, our listeners. As we always say, no one's smarter than everyone. Let's just continue to get better together. Y'all, we'll see you next time. See you soon.